And welcome back to the Part-Time Otaku Podcast. My name is Grant.
My name is Dave.
We are back. We took 1 week off. We were under the idea that My Hero could drop a bullshit filler episode on us 1 week, so we thought we could take a week off on the regular schedule. So this week we are going to be covering both episodes 17 and 18. So we're just going to get them all the way there. But before we get into that, we want to give a shout out to Reddit user Mega M418 for the Midoriya thumbnail for both these episodes.
I love the colors.
I love colors.
Love the colors. Love the whole look. Great work.
Yeah, it's
It's
so
It's our first thumbnail that covers 2 episodes. How do you like that? It's so good. It's representing 2 episodes.
We're breaking new ground here.
It's unbelievable. There's never been a more ambitious crossover event in cinematic history. Okay, anyway, I'm kidding. Okay.
Oh, right here on the Part-Time Otaku Podcast.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll just jump right into the first synopsis, and we'll talk about episode 17, and then we'll do a second synopsis again later for episode 18.
Double feature.
So Endeavor brings his work-study students over for dinner at Fuyumi's request, but faces awkward conversations at home.
I didn't anticipate that My Hero Academia would take my visits back to my hometown and make an episode out of it. I'm kidding. A little dark considering the content.
Very dark.
It's a little bit
content.
a little much.
Interesting episode, I will say.
Interesting, exactly.
Did you like it?
No.
No, I didn't think you would.
It's I still like the show, obviously. Look what we're doing here.
Sure.
It's just like My Hero is probably the most, what is the word for this? Maybe you would know. Like, I don't want to say thin, but I think this is the show, and I don't want to say ambitious either. I think they cover the most ground out of like some of the animes that I've seen. Like it's weird to have a show that is not, like adult themed and like rated a little bit for more mature audiences. It's weird to have a show that's primarily probably aimed a little bit younger, cover things like the teenage experience, but then also like fun shonen stuff, but then also like childhood abuse.
Yeah, it's
it's like they're all, I mean, I guess they, it sounds like a show could do that, but this is done in a very weird way where like you randomly dedicate 20 minutes in an entire episode to this like super heavy theme. It's just kind of weird. I'm not saying it's bad, but not my favorite.
Well, I think we've talked about it before, but it kind of feels like a half measure.
Yes.
They're not, at no point. It's funny because this episode and it's the recurring theme of, well, again, maybe it's in anime in general, but at least you and I have noticed that this season in My Hero it's incredibly flashback heavy. Yeah. And I feel there was, honest to God, a third of this episode was dedicated to flashbacks of just completely filling in the context. And actually in this episode, it's funny, like Leanne and I were watching it on the rewatch, and it was like, oh, that's actually perfect. Like they kind of wrapped up all the stuff with Todoroki's mom and all that. It was just all kind of like neatly packaged. But even then, when it kind of shows the full extent of it, it still kind of feels like a half measure. It's like,
and here's
it would fully dedicate to the storyline or like really sell it. And to be fair, I do think the show is trying.
Totally.
But I just don't think it's landing fully. At
yeah.
least,
And you have to give them, half credit for their half measure, because the truth is, like, if they just went fully in this direction and did an arc on like child abuse, it'd be like, what the hell is happening? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like they're exploring these themes and they're exposing their audience to it, and I applaud them for like giving this a go. It's just it doesn't feel like it's in this the show's wheelhouse. Like they might be just reaching just a little bit. We've talked time and time again about how good this show is at doing certain things, and I think we see a lot of that in the next episode, which we're going to cover in like 20 minutes, so stay tuned. But this one just felt a little bit off base. So, but maybe we can dissect it a little more thoroughly.
Yeah. We'll go beat by beat here.
Yeah. So maybe just to start off, like most of the episodes this season, we start with a quick recap, and that's Midoriya, Bakugo, and Shoto. It's a recap that they've been with Endeavor now on their work studies, following him around, absorbing his knowledge and all that for about a week. They've come up short so far. If you guys remember, the whole challenge he put to them was like, if you can beat me once,
Yeah.
This season or this winter or whatever it is, you can call that a win. So far, not going so well.
You could see that's like their focus, like the three of them. Like
Yeah.
they both, like that's like their soul, which in the moment of them kind of like because it's brought up like every time you see them. End this episode, and even in kind of next episode, which is more fitting, obviously, like for obvious reasons, which we'll get to. But it's like, is this like the takeaway lesson from like your time on with like the number one hero? Is like you just want to beat him? Like it's like I know that like they are making the effort, that they are learning, but it just seems such a strange hill that they're kind of like planted their flag into, of like, we just got to beat him. It's not about learning all this other extra stuff, which they are, and they are showing that. It's just, I find it a little weird, especially Midoriya.
Yeah, I agree. It's like a weird. It was handled kind of weirdly in this one. I feel like it makes a little bit more sense when the pieces come together next episode. But alas, we'll get there. Basically the episode starts with he beats them to the scene again. Then he sends them to bed. He's like, "All right, now get up to bed, you kids." Super weird. He gets another call for a hit and run. Or no, sorry, I already covered that. I want to cut to the dinner invite from his daughter.
Yeah. I'll see you then. That's basically what it was.
Yeah.
Which is funny.
Yeah, like, I think I should have known what we were into. Just like, I think the episode title is The Hellish Todoroki Family.
Yeah.
So, like...
Which I love. It's a good episode name.
Yeah, it isn't bad, like you said, tons of flashbacks. Before we are at the dinner table, we flash back to Endeavor. Like, he's in his office, like, thinking about his family, wanting to connect with them, sort of lamenting his past behavior, Todoroki's injury. He goes from that flashback to another flashback of him talking to his daughter about Shoto visiting their mother, because she's still, like, I think, like, she's had, like, a psychotic break.
I think they put her in a mental hospital. That's what it's alluded to.
Yeah, because she, like, freaked out and had an injured Shoto, right?
Yeah.
But presumably that happened due to the stress that Endeavor was putting on the family. Yeah, okay.
It's a sick cycle. It's funny. Like, I know the episode title is kind of like a joke and a play, but when you eventually kind of get them all in the room together, you're like, oh, this is kind of shitty. Like, it definitely was not fun growing up in this house.
Yeah, because following that, there's a flashback of Natsuo, the eldest son, yelling at his dad, right? Because he seemed to be the only one that was kind of like of age during this whole period, and their relationship, as we'll see later this episode, is like maybe in the worst shape out of everyone. What happens after that, Grant?
Well, and I think this is where Endeavor is finally, like, it's like, flashback after flashback, and then it cuts to the flashback with All Might. So you can tell they're trying to juggle two things right now. They're juggling the family thing, and then they're also juggling the whole, like, the number one hero thing at the same time, which Endeavor, I kind of wish they left it out. I
wish they'd pick a lane.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I find it weird that they tried to fill in the number one hero stuff when the whole goal of this episode is clearly to set up, or like to follow up or finish up the family stuff that he has. So this is the whole half measure thing. It's like, it's like you said, like, there's no specific lane. Like, there's the obvious one, but it's like they're still dabbling in the other stuff. Like, I know they need to paint a full picture for Endeavor, but it just, up until the actual dinner scene, the whole episode feels so filler. You know what I mean?
It's just a lot of weird back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of interesting value in Endeavor having, like, a self-identity crisis, not really understanding what the symbol of peace means, not really understanding his role as number one. We saw him struggle with that towards the end of the last season. I thought that was really fun. So maybe this is foreshadowing that there's more to come, that, like, maybe he's going to sort of find himself while he's training these kids, which is like a tale or a trope as old as time, but sure. I'm down with it because I think we agree, like, the chemistry between him and these three kids is pretty good.
You should have more of that, honestly.
Yeah, like, Bakugo being a brat, and
Bakugo
just,
stole the episode.
yeah, totally. Which is funny, right? Like, we're not there yet, but like, it is kind of funny how that.
But
how that
but even
happened.
even like the moments leading up to, like obviously this leads to, Endeavor's doing his thing in his own room. Kids are gone to bed. It's like the next day. That's the thing. There's like an emergency buzzer, but it doesn't allude that like it's so immediate that it cuts right to the scene. It kind of shows them all waking up the next morning.
Yeah, there's a weird edit.
It was
pacing.
a very weird. Okay, it wasn't just me then, right? So
No.
But and then like just Bakugo like waking up, like the don't of course he's not a morning person, which is just it's just so funny.
You just picture him and just like they should like just get like a Starbucks sponsored episode of just him just like angrily being in line.
It's like they've really
it tastes bad.
Honestly, these past like 5 episodes, they've just been leaning so hard in how fucking grumpy Bakugo is.
It works more than it doesn't. It's funny, eh?
And it lands every episode, probably because just all the other stuff going on in the episodes is just not kind of gripping us. I think so. We're falling into the stuff that is a guaranteed win for us, but
because comedy relief in anime is so weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes it's like kind of weeby and pervy, and it's like don't do that.
Yeah.
And like sometimes it's like just sort of like make a cheap like pun or joke or like nerdy, you know what I mean, type joke. But just like what you don't get a lot is people just being super angry at this at like end obtuse, and that's funny all the time.
Specifically to his level, because it's such like it's so loud, it's so angry. Like you do see that is a trope. You do see that in other shows, but just the guy that. Kudos to that guy, like that
Killing
does
it.
his voice. He
Consistency.
really takes it there. But yeah, so then it kind of just jumps from there, and then it kind of leads into not super gracefully, but it's like another montage of like them saving people in the street and racing again. But then it just kind of boom, dinner time, and it kind of catches them off guard, which is what I love. You just Midoriya and Bakugo's face kind of just like, what are we doing?
I thought we were hanging out here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Workday ends, immediately arrive at the Todoroki house. There's like some lighthearted, awkward, fun stuff between Midoriya and the sister, I think like Fuyumi.
Yep.
That's like, peak like chill, awkward interaction. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, just more Bakugo of like, go inside and tell them I'm not your friend. No.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I don't want anybody here under false pretenses.
Yeah.
Then there's the actual meal, and like this is where the episode like sort of drags, or it got weird. Like this is where they have to make the scene like the awkward scene. Like here's a family that doesn't really know each other anymore. They're kind of estranged. There's so much history at the table that like everybody's kind of on eggshells. I get that, and it sort of worked for me. I mean, I think like taking Natsuo. He leaves immediately after eating. He's like, I can't do this, and like there is some comedic relief. I think is it from Bakugo again? He's
Same thing. He's like, you guys are ruining the tofu. That's like his. Yeah. He goes to it like 3 times from this point to the end of the episode. I love it. I
think Midoriya or Bakugo, one of them goes, "Why would you try to work this out while your guests are here?" Like one of them ends up saying, "Why would you talk about such serious stuff in front of guests?"
No, it's post the meal. They're cleaning up, and it's. I think it's Shoto and Fuyumi are talking over the table, and like Midoriya and Bakugo are listening on the one side, and then I think Natsuo hears on the one side, and then also I think Endeavor can hear. So like they can all hear, and then after they have their conversation, like Bakugo busts in. He's like, "Why would you talk about sensitive stuff? Like we're guests,
We're just we're in Japan. The walls are paper thin."
He was us. Like he was the audience in that scene.
Yep.
It's all I could take. And so more about the dinner scene. I don't know about you, but it was hard to really take it super seriously because, like, it's obviously like we're talking about both episodes, but even like when the episode aired like 2 weeks ago, I was like, this is clearly gonna have a next episode follow up. This isn't going to be some lasting thing. This is just going to be answered and solved within an episode. And it does. Like, it goes directly to something. It didn't feel earned. It's just like they set this thing up very, lazily. The whole Natsuo and Endeavor, more of their drama.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So I would say the meat of the episode, if the meat is like the dinner, that part didn't really work for me. It's interesting to know that like potentially the mom is going to get out of the hospital soon, and that like the whole family is trying. And Shoto and Endeavor are central characters, and like this relationship with their family clearly is very defining for them, especially Shoto, right? Who has like struggled so much to use his dad's quirk with everything going on. So all of that matters, just not as much as they're implying in a way to like some of these main threads. I don't know. It's tricky. I think
It's a
very
tricky episode. It's like I said, if I feel like if they had not streamlined is not the word, but if they had just fully put their eggs into the family dynamic for a longer period over the season, this would have been way more natural, and it would have it would have been something of substance. It just feels thrown together. Like they've only been breadcrumbing it throughout like these, at this point 16 episodes.
Yeah, and like they might like acknowledge family drama like once per season outside of this.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's just not, I just don't think it's their cleanest arc, but like you mentioned, there's an immediate follow-up. I will say, there is a twist here, or there's two little lore bombs at the end. And that, it's this line that Endeavor has said a couple times in the same episode. He says, I keep having the same dream of my family having dinner together. And he says it, I think, mid or early episode, and he says it again right before credits. And then it shows him at, forgive me, I don't know the term. It's like a prayer stone, altar. Yeah, like one of those things where you mourn people, and there's a little boy there. And it seems like they lost a son at some point. And that's, that brings this shit even darker.
Yeah.
And then there's credits. That I thought like brought a whole new level to what they were doing. I just wish that maybe, I don't know, like I guess we could go backwards and be like, oh, this sort of foreshadowed that, and like maybe they did. But
it's
I don't know.
I don't think that the timing of like this reveal and when it happened is not the issue. I think if we had genuinely spent more time and like more dedication was put into, like, we've only had like three like momentary like small moments of Natsuo and Endeavor like beefing with one another. And like it's like you said, like once per season, maybe twice, they would like they drip feed us the the family drama. So like I said, the reveal is good. And it makes sense, and obviously it adds a whole bunch more to the dynamic. But this season specifically, this is the season they chose, or like they're at that point where they have all this stuff is coming to the audience. They should have dedicated more time to it. Like it's even then, like we got like, instead of like one moment per season, we got like maybe four. This should have been like a main storyline from the get-go, where there was more portions of each episode dedicated to it. Not just like, okay, here's the episode where it happens, let's just stuff it all right here, let's remind you in one flashback. And it just kind of seems like a little, it's like, well, this is what we got. So
yeah, based on the events of next episode, which is promoted at the end credit scene, because there's an end credit scene here of a villain seeing a poster of Endeavor being the new #1 hero. He smiles like a villain because he's a villain. And and you're like, oh, I wonder what's gonna happen next episode. So based off the events of episode 18, which we may as well jump into, my question is just like, is this it? Like, will we go back to this later? Are we going to drop this for another season and then explore it more? I don't know. Maybe we can answer that question after we break down season 5 episode 18.
Yeah, so I guess we'll jump right, a quick little synopsis. So one of Endeavor's biggest fans shows up to settle some unfinished business, and he expects far more than an autograph. Far more. So this is what I was talking about. Like, it feels like the last episode was just setting up a moment for just this episode, and it's like it wasn't a bigger picture thing, which I think it should have been.
Yep.
It feels like we've set it up. There's drama. I hate you. Boom. But the nice thing with the end of this episode is I do think there's going to be... This isn't done yet. I think there's going to be...
Yeah.
I don't know why by the end of the episode I was like, I think Endeavor might not make it.
Dude, yeah.
Yeah. Like...
he like... How do I say this? I was thinking about this recently about who are the best characters to kill, right?
Yeah.
And it's the ones that you care about kind of in spite of yourself, right? Like it would be, whose death would mean a lot. Obviously Midoriya's, right? But you never kill the character people love from day one. Like you kill the characters that like people end up loving despite not originally caring about them. You know what I mean? Like, have you heard of Vegeta? like the anti-hero of all anti-heroes who starts as a villain. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Endeavor's kind of that, right? He's this abusive guy who is like pretty abrasive and brash and like is kind of going through this transformation right now. And I think, maybe this could be the beginning of him coming into his own in more ways than one. And maybe all this stuff gets worked out, and maybe the way he, makes amends, because I think he alludes to atonement at one point, is like, some kind of ultimate sacrifice type shit. I cannot believe I just predicted the entire rest of the season off the cuff.
Yeah, it's just, and the thing that to me that makes it feel like it's gonna go that way is they've been really pumping up Hawks to be like, I don't fucking want to teach kids. I don't want to be the guy that leads the next generation, and it's exactly what he's gonna fucking be.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
My Hero. This does move pretty slow. Like we think about all the time we got with All Might before he didn't even bite the dust, but before he was out of the picture. So maybe we get like a whole season more of Endeavor, and eventually that happens. I don't know, but I totally agree about the Hawks thing. By the way, I think like he's already been positioned in a way to be like adjacent if he's needed to do some teaching. He was a work study guy for Tokiyami. Is that who it is?
Yeah, Tokiyami. Yeah.
So he did that. He's had a relationship with these kids already. He's worked closely with Endeavor. So like, if like something happens while the two of them are in the line of duty, maybe something could happen there. But you never know. Anyway, that could be super interesting. So, all of that said, this episode picks up right off the last one after they do 3 minutes of recap. This guy, I'm trying to think of like, it starts with, guess what? A flashback.
Yeah.
You guys didn't see that shit coming. But this one's different because it's an actual flashback the viewer hasn't seen. This isn't like, remember
this is
this
a memory.
scene?
This isn't information. Yeah.
Yes. It's several years ago, quote, and it's Endeavor being irritable after catching a villain. It's this guy who's just like creepy AF. He was like watching him from a crowd. Then he gets out of prison in present day, and he's been, based off his dialogue, he's like, oh, what a nice house, like his dialogue sort of suggests that he's been watching Endeavor for a while, and he injects himself with Trigger, which is also like the fun villain plot mechanic that this season has employed. Can't anyone just do this au naturel? I don't understand.
Why can't we just have like strong power level villains?
Why is everybody on TRT and HGH? They're on that Joe Rogan medicine diet. Endeavor, no one else is juicing.
I do not. I rolled my eyes when I saw the Trigger move. I was like, you have got to be fucking kidding me. Like,
why can't they just be like formidable? Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, I guess maybe. Okay, devil's advocate to my own neurosis. Sure. Maybe, Endeavor is so incredibly high up the food chain at number one that a regular villain, even a one that was, quote, elite, really would not cause that much trouble for him unless they had some crazy punch-up, steroid.
Is it this guy, and this jumping ahead a little bit, but is it this guy's goal to get his ass kicked and beat Endeavor, or is it to get killed by Endeavor?
Which is kind of also, just while we're here, I think it's the latter, which is to get killed, which is kind of like the whole.
So why do you need to juice up?
Suicide by cop thing? Like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, it's very strange.
It's a little dark, but you're right. Yeah, like if he is just trying to get. Oh, I think I know why. I think I can answer your question because he says, as he's got, we're really jumping ahead, but he says, heroes don't kill. So maybe he needs the juice to make a situation so dire and so fucksville for Endeavor that Endeavor has no choice but to blow him away.
Gotcha.
God, we nailed
Question answered.
We're just answering and our own
they should
questions
have us
here.
in the writer's room. There's a couple things we would have changed. For sure.
This is unreal. So he watches Endeavor. He does the whole trigger thing, and then Shoto and his sister are telling Midoriya and Co. about their family history. And this is when we get like this little exposition lore thing, more exposition, that they had a brother named Toya who died. Do we learn how? Am I forgetting?
I don't think so. I think it's kind of vague because it doesn't interrupt to. No, It doesn't interrupt right to the fight because like they're on the way home at that point.
Yeah. Well, it interrupts with Natsuo being attacked. I don't even know if they show him being attacked. It's just like he's like walking home and like something happens that is like sinister, and it's like pretty spoon fed. We don't see it happen, but I think it's like fairly obvious in this moment that he's being attacked by this creepy fella. There is a pretty funny scene though following this of Endeavor and all the kids in the car.
The driver? Who the fuck is the driver?
So this is My Hero Academia strengths. Yeah. So let's just pluck a character out of existence and give him moments. And that also goes a long way when you have like good voice actors all the time.
Yeah.
But like
I honestly thought it was it Gentle Criminal?
Dude, I got that vibe too. I got like a mixture of Gentle Criminal and the announcer guy with the mic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I guess at a certain point, like when you're just literally inventing people with random traits, you could probably just start making hybrids of them.
Yeah, like because you have starting from different art styles.
You have hundreds, right?
Yeah.
Then this is where the business starts, and Natsuo, I always forget his name, sorry, is thrown in front of the car, or like into the air in front of the car by said villain. Mm-hmm. And we've mentioned this about My Hero often before, like just their whole use of quirks.
Yeah.
And like, hey, I've just decided I'm gonna invent a quirk, and sometimes they're super obvious, like super strength, and sometimes they're like, I'm gonna weaponize the paint lines on the road.
So cool. One of the best uses of CG I think My Hero has done.
Yeah, and it was very smooth.
Not much. I honestly can't think of much in the show. I know in the movies there's a couple they've slipped in. I've only seen the one.
They had a little bit in the first arc during the class battles that were like not perfect. I remember we mentioned those, but this one was really good. Yeah. This one was very slick.
Yeah. Well, this whole scene is just pure Sakuga. Like,
dude, this is a good one. This is this whole moment, and it flies by. Endeavor flies out of the car, attacks the villain, who uses Natsu as a shield, and then there's like this. There's always the discussion about the fight while you're in the fight.
Yeah.
And then they have to get that out, right? Like they talk about, oh yeah, it was me 7 years ago. He has a cool name, Ending. It's kind of a cool villain name. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like more epic than the villain ends up being. It's like you should have gave that to a cool, like
it's
a really
tongue in cheek, considering like he just wanted to be killed so bad, which I thought was funny. I was like, like he wanted an ending. I was like, maybe that's a little too much, but
a little on the nose, perhaps, right? But yeah, that's like the next thing. He's like, oh, I want you to be killed by you, yada, yada, yada. And then there's like my favorite part of the whole episode. And that's when the kids blow their way out of the car. And this dope ass driver is like, hold up, like, don't forget your bat suit. He just like
trunk opens.
The Iron Man cases fly towards all three of them.
Love it.
That was dope as fuck.
Yeah.
They didn't look like kids in that moment, right? Like,
no, they didn't.
They looked like fucking real heroes.
They're jumping into it, yeah.
Yeah, I loved all that shit. They are engaged right away by Ending's raps, like their road. I don't know what to call them. The road paint.
Yeah.
Endeavor engages, but the guy Ending uses Natsuo as a shield, and then Endeavor sort of freezes.
Mm.
And we understand why later, but he's distracted. And like I don't know if you thought about this in the moment. I'm thinking about it like as I say it, but like I think this moment, him freezing, is like there's a big juxtaposition there because he has been so insanely consistent and efficient at just destroying and all these villains, right? Like the kids can't ever get a word in or a moment in edgewise because he's just too fast.
Yeah,
and he hesitates, I think, at the critical moment here. And it's clearly because his son, there's a family thing describing.
It's the family thing, and there's also just he has to, because there's even some, I believe there's some inner, monologue of him, of like, what do I do? Like Natsu, like you can tell he's just trying to think about how Natsu's gonna feel. Mm-hmm. Which is like
he's in his own head.
yeah, it's there's so many fucking weird layers, and but honestly, whatever. The boys showed up, and the boys took care of business.
Shonen boys showing up.
Shonen boys showing up. Holy fuck, man!
It happened again.
Yeah.
As they're showing up, Ending grabs cars off the road with his quirk, and he throws them sort of midair. And this gives like everybody a moment. And there's also this is what we were talking about last episode that I really liked. We're talking about like how the focus was sort of like beat Endeavor rather than save people.
Yeah.
But over this like Sakuga scene, there's all this voiceover from each character as they're on screen, and they're echoing like these lines of advice that Endeavor had given them in the previous 2 episodes. So they're saying like, oh, you got to like build up your quirk, be ready to unleash it at whatever moment, condense it, do this, do that. And they're all sort of thinking to themselves about what Endeavor has taught them. And it all, sort of bears fruit in this scene because they all get a dope moment. Bakugo saved Natsu, which is dope, by the way, that he's the one to save him. Just because, like, this, the obvious role in my head is, like, Bakugo lays into the villain, like, blows him to Kingdom Come.
Yep.
But I appreciate that, like, he prioritized the rescue.
Which is what's been drilled into them, which is nice.
Yep. Midoriya, huge moment, biggest of like maybe the season.
Yeah.
Like he uses Black Whip.
Oh, chills. Got chills just talking about it.
That was pretty sick, right?
Yeah.
That was pretty fucking slick.
That's what we need. And this is
thank fuck, dude. I thought like they might be
God.
saving that. I thought they might be saving that to the finale. And I was like, oh my god, thank you for doing this now.
This is we'll get to Shoto in a second, but this is the fucking craziness that they played on us a couple of weeks ago. Of does he have it? Or he doesn't. Does he have it? Or he doesn't? Like it's like does he have the fucking ability or not?
Yes.
And this is definitive in a moment, like a regular potential scenario, because that's what it is. Like it's heightened because it's family, and it's like there's a lot of stuff going to it. But in the moment when Midoriya needed to use it, he can. At like the right level, and it's like okay, good, this is going to be going forward. And if they fucking go back on this again, Dave,
his performance anxiety next time,
no man, like they better stick with this. I'm serious.
Give him the quirk, give the kid the quirk.
Yeah,
let's move forward.
Yeah.
Shoto's moment is he just lays into Ending with fire and ice,
big time.
Beautiful animation on all 3 of their moments. Endeavor sees it all happen, rushes forward to hug his son. Villain is restrained by Shoto. Bakugo starts yapping about how he's the shit. Just immediately, like, does not hesitate to just, like, rub salt in the wound.
Yeah.
It's like, listen to you old fuck. You told us we had all winter. It took 1 week. If Bakugo, I don't know, I've never listened to the English dub, but if there's, like, a feature film or, like, live action, for God's sake, like, I hope there isn't. But, like, I can just so see them, like, making Bakugo, like, this incredibly angry kid from Boston.
Oh, my God.
They just make him Ben Affleck from Good Will Hunting. Listen, I see you coming around here. You got all these fucking smarts. Listen, if I were you. Anyway, awesome. You can't throw it all away, Midoriya. What are you saying? Okay. Anyway. What happens? Oh, right. Then, yeah, Bakugo's talking shit. Endeavor fesses up immediately. He's like, yo, dude, I fucked up. Ease up, compadre.
Yeah.
And, like, his reasoning is weird. It's like, what? He goes, I hesitated because if I saved you, I thought that you might feel like I was just doing it to make up for what happened as when we were younger with Toya's death. And it's just sort of complex. I don't really know what's happening there. Sorry for all the noise, if you can hear that.
Oh, no. We're going to need to follow up on that. Like, because there's no way they're going to leave this Toya stuff alone. So I think there's going to be, it's going to make more sense, a lot more. In the moment, it was definitely weird. But, like with anything, with this whole storyline with the Endeavor family, it's so fucking messy. So it's at this point, I'm kind of over it. When it's told, it's told. Like they can just keep going with the drip feed if they want. But you just had to take it. You just had to take it at face value.
Yeah, not so. I was like, I'm not gonna forgive you. Endeavor's like, that's okay. We can like put in the effort more or less, or like show up for the rest of the family's sake. He's got something in mind to sort of try to atone. which we get to at the end of the episode. Villain is losing his shit as being carted away by police, talking about how he wanted to be blown away. I didn't even realize like how similar that was, like how like kind of fucking dark that is. Another really fun thing, which is probably also easily predictable potentially. Bakugo says he's picked a hero name, but won't tell the other kids yet. He's going to tell someone else first. I'm assuming Genist.
I'm assuming, yeah.
That one's not that hard of a guess. And then Endeavor thinks of Hawks, which is like there's this funny moment. Like Hawks has his ears burning more or less. He's like, oh, I never, Hawks had a good eye. Like the kids, these kids are talented. And then Hawks, it cuts to him being like, oh, I wonder if
that's got to be an anime trope because we'll get into another show I'm watching in the post show, and same thing. They were talking about a character and it cuts to them sneezing and being like, huh? And it's like
that's pretty funny.
And I feel like they did that in Attack on Titan too.
Yeah.
So it's funny no matter what.
And then post credits, Endeavor takes Natsuo home, talks to his daughter, says he's gonna build her a house for her and her mother just to help with like the logistical issues, because presumably they sort of allude to there being logistical issues of like discharging mom from hospital and all the traveling back and forth.
I'm gonna build you guys a brand new fucking house. I'm fucking rich. So.
Yeah. I mean, he's got like
that house is dope.
I gotta say, like, to be fair though, like I remember seeing his agency and it's like a skyscraper. It's like, yeah, dude, you can like set aside some cash for a bungalow. Like, ease up, compadre. What do you mean you haven't built them a house already? You should give them a neighborhood.
Yeah, buy one.
Yeah.
Just take care of it.
Anyway, a nice gesture. And that wraps up episode 18 of season 5, My Hero Academia.
It's so funny. We finished the episode, Leanna and I, and so it's similar to Attack on Titan. Leanna has not watched any of My Hero, but she's watching this season, week to week with me, and we finished it, and we're getting up, going to the kitchen, making a coffee or whatever, and she goes, "Wow, I didn't know I needed that out of My Hero," and I kind of like turned and I was like, "Oh yeah, like you haven't seen shit in this show, like the whole moment where the three boys kind of like kick into gear and it's just fucking shonen overload, and it was just like all I can think of is like she hasn't seen the overhaul fight, she hasn't seen All Might versus one or All for One, like
and the kids rescuing each other amidst that fight, all the tournament arc, and
so it was and then I immediately kind of just went, fuck, like
League of Villains stuff,
all this stuff, and I was like, that just goes to show so far this season has just not been cutting it.
No, it hasn't. And we've had like this like slow drip of like what Tomura Shigaraki's up to and this whole like conspiracy theory, but that stuff taken a pretty long time. Maybe in retrospect, maybe we'll feel like when we finally get to that arc and like we get the business, that like maybe our main characters will have grown a lot as a result of this experience, the class battles and the work studies. I'm not saying that, I'm not like forgiving them in advance. I'm just saying maybe it'll work. Maybe the pacing will make sense, but it hasn't so far.
Because when you think about it, there's really only 6 episodes left.
Yeah, that's
and then also we have to wait another week. We have another bye week.
Oh, we have a hiatus coming up?
Yeah, there's no episode this Saturday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
Olympics related, I believe. So.
Interesting. Well, fortunately for listeners, that means probably that you'll get the post show a couple of days early next week, which is a good time to tell you guys about the post show. If you haven't listened to it, it's just a little bit more of a casual show where Grant and I aren't like critically reviewing anything beat by beat. It's just generally speaking, what are we watching this week? So like, for example, this week we're going to talk about, To Your Eternity, Tokyo Revengers. There's like a bunch of anime news, like the Blade Runner anime, the Witcher anime, a bunch of stuff like that, like a live action Pokemon series. Like we're gonna have to get into that. The Venom 2 trailer. There's so much stuff. So we've got a lot to talk about. That's what the post show is about. It's a ton of fun, and we know that you guys are enjoying it too. So if by chance you haven't checked it out, do that. It usually drops on Fridays, but sometimes earlier if there's no My Hero episode. I think that's probably it for this week.
I think so.
Cool. Thank you guys for listening. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, download, do the relevant social media action on the relevant social media platform. Thank you for listening. See you next week.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.